We're again proceeding to study Nobel Prize winners in literature. And we have a rather interesting figure who won the award last year, Dario Fo from Italy. He's not alone among the spirit with which he writes and the attack upon the government that he issues. We know that Yeats fought to gain Ireland its independence. Soyinka was considered persona non grata in Nigeria. Szymborska found herself against the Nazis and then against the communists. And Fo discovers himself amidst a tempestuous Italian government where the Christian Democrats on the one hand and the Communist Party on the other, and the fascists still far to the right, are in opposition to each other, trying to gain strength. And Fo, in his writing and in his plays, asserts independence, the poet's independence of government, the poet's right to say what he wants, to describe what he wants, to decipher right from wrong, to decipher oppression and suppression from liberty and equality. And these are the concerns of Dario Fo, as they were the concerns of Szymborska, Soyinka, Yeats, and others who have won Nobel Prize recognition. A few comments about Dario Fo, just to give us some of his background so you know who you're looking at. You're looking at Dario Fo, born in Lago Maggiore, Italy. His mother, Pignarota Fo, we know, was of peasant stock, but not ignorant, and a writer, a woman who in 1978 published her reminiscences called Land of Frogs. His father, Felice Fo, was a socialist employee of the Italian state railways before the communist takeover. In the 40s, Fo was an architectural student and at the Politecnico. But from 52 to 54, he was involved in writing monologues, satirical reviews, and he found himself facing the censors. From 1959 to 1967, a period of 8 years, he was a writer and producer of comedies for the bourgeois theater, primarily satires. And in 1962, he was the producer of a very, very big satirical TV program called Canzonissima, which was heavily censored. He objected to the censorship and finally withdrew. In 1968, his wife and he, Franca Rame, supported a new company, and in 1970 they formed and helped develop La Commune, which was a theater for theatrical productions, primarily satirical and anti-governmental productions. In 1970 to 74, they were involved not only in these productions for the Commune, but they were also involved in circumstances with the Communist Party, of which they were members, and they left the party during those years. Some of the instructions, some of the information we get in the play, The Accidental Death of an Anarchist, deals with these tempestuous years and the reaction of the government to anarchists, and in fact situations in which the government seems to have incited riots and incited anarchistic activity under the guise of its being leftist so that they could suppress leftist movements. And this becomes part of Fo's history. We discovered in 1973 that Fo's wife was actually abducted by fascists, beaten and raped for retaliation for some of her satire and some of her attacks. And one of our speakers may address this issue later on. In 1977, he produced Mester Buffo. Now that's really a series of mystery plays, that is, plays dealing with religion. And I'm going to spend a few moments at the beginning of this period discussing Mistero Buffo. In 1978, you had that terrible situation, that terrible set of circumstances where Aldo Moro, the head of the Christian Socialist Party, was kidnapped. And it was an anomalous act because he was actually one of the people trying to bring the Communist Party into the bureaucracy, into the government. He was kidnapped and murdered, and this becomes a rather important event in the plays of Dario Fo, who has used this on several occasions to write dramas that attacked both the government and the anti-government forces for their ferocity, their brutality, and their murder. In 1980, Dario Fo and his wife had planned to come to the United States to perform some of their plays in New York, but they were forbidden for doing so because they were thought to have been involved in a leftist group. In fact, the leftist group they were involved with, as we understand it, was trying to bring about a harmonious situation and trying to resolve political problems instead of leading to anarchy. In 1983, instead, in London, he had great success with Mr. Buffo. And I'm going to spend a few moments with Mr. Buffo and show you what's involved in this particular production. In 1997, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Now, just a few comments about the dramatic theory we're looking at. The term Mr. Buffo really is Mistero Buffo, which is a series of plays. The word mistero means mystery, and those of you who are familiar with medieval literature know that we're talking about mystery plays, plays dealing with religious themes. And Buffo is a term related to the nature of the production. These Mistero Buffo were produced by the Gilari, medieval strolling players who performed in Europe's piazzas. The term mystery actually comes from the 2nd and 3rd century A.D. as a term for a sacred spectacle or performance. Mitchell, in a book entitled Dario Fo, People's Court Gesture, here's a picture of the book, and a picture of Fo, who acts himself in many of his productions. Mitchell says, in extracting the grotesque elements of the mystery plays, Fo's intention is to bring to the foreground their popular origins and mock the pomp and postures of the church hierarchy, while popularizing Christ and biblical legend, which is seen from the medieval peasant's point of view. So on the one hand, he is giving us a dramatic technique that's historical. Secondly, he is traditionally attacking both government and church hierarchy. And third, he is taking a position in protecting the medieval peasant's point of view. This is traditional. We know from the 14th and 13th centuries that there were many movements to try to restore some rights to the peasants and to recognize peasants' rights. Says Mitchell, the inventors of the Mistero Buffo were the people. From the first centuries after Christ, the people entertained themselves, although it was not merely a form of entertainment, by putting on and performing in spectacles of an ironic and grotesque nature. So when you speak about ironies, you're really talking about the way events turn on themselves and the way the writers express ideas that we know ought to be interpreted opposite the stated word. As far as the people were concerned, writes Mitchell, the theater, and particularly the theater of the grotesque, had always been their chief means of expression and communication, as well as putting across ideas by means of provocation and agitation. Now, the purposes of the grotesque. The grotesque really is enormity, abnormality, distortion, disjunction, in ways that make it obvious that the writer is attempting to present a position different from that normally accepted by conventional folk or conventional authorities. The epic theater of the medieval gelari has choral elements in it, didactic elements in it, and political elements in it. For example, you would see the celebration of a pure Christ against hypocritical religion and social injustice, and you find that in the Mr. Buffo plays, which we're going to look at in a few moments. You find yourself facing grotesque characters and vulgar workers. There are various techniques that Foe uses. One is he uses a dialect, which crosses various dialects. He calls it the Padano dialect. It's a mix of dialects of the Po Valley, Lombardian, Venetian, Piedmontese, and sometimes he completely invents styles. He uses another technique called gramolo. The gramolot is a phonic abstract sound system in which few recognizable words of any language occur. And you'll find interspersed throughout his literature words that he invents. For example, when he wants to describe hypocrisy, he refers to Molière's Tartuffe. Tartuffe was a hypocritical priest in a 17th century play by the Frenchman Molière. And Foe uses the word tartuffagine to suggest that this is hypocrisy. Interesting aspects. Here is a man who himself is a playwright. Here is a man who himself is an actor. In fact, he acts in mime, he acts in voice. He sometimes in his plays 2 or 3 characters himself, acting out the roles and the plays you're going to see tonight. All right, now we're going to look at the plays that we're going to talk about this evening. The first set of plays we're going to look at is a series called Mr. Buffo. Now, I've mentioned to you that this is really a series of religious plays. And in the collection in your text, you've got 1, the slaughter of the innocents. A second, the morality play of the blind man and the cripple. A third, the marriage at Cana. The fourth, the birth of the jongleur. The fifth, the resurrection of Lazarus. And next, Boniface the Eighth. Now this series of plays, first performed in 1977 and 1980, has religious themes where Foe, playing these roles himself, demonstrates human nature and the hypocrisy of human nature in a Christian matrix. For example, the slaughter of the innocents, as we well know, is a story in Matthew 1:1-23, where Herod, incensed because the Magi have left and because he cannot identify the presence of Christ, assumes that from having seen the star, that anyone 2 years and under might be the Christ who would displace him. And so Herod commands that all of the children 2 and under be slaughtered. And in this particular play, we'll see 2 soldiers at their job, and we'll see a woman whose child has been slaughtered, who has saved the only being she can hold in her hands, and that is a lamb. And she holds this lamb as her child. The lamb, of course, being an animal, not a child, but obviously symbolic and representative of Christ. In fact, the slaughter of the innocents, Herod's anger at the departure of the Magi. This is Matthew 2. I said Matthew 1. Matthew 2, verses 1 to 23. We're going to look at that, and then we're going to look at the slaughter of the innocents. We're going to look at the callous nature of the soldiers, the woman with a lamb as her baby, and the death of the compassionate soldier. A soldier decides to save her, and he is killed by another soldier. And we'll see how that acts out. So what I'd like to do now is call here the English 3345 drama troupe, and let's discuss and do the slaughter of the innocents. It's just a short production. Miss Warford? No, Miss Warford and Miss Pavlik. And the soldiers will put bloody swords in your hand so we can identify who the soldiers are. All right? Come around, please. Come around so you... Now, the 2 soldiers are laughing. We get on page 20. And the woman who's holding this baby in her hands is shouting at them.
Pig, murderer, don't touch my baby.
Let it go. Let go of that baby or I'll cut your hands off. I'll kick you in the belly. Let go.
No, kill me instead. You've killed him. Dead.
Hey, here comes another one. Stop where you are, woman, or I shall run both of you through, you and your baby.
Run us both through. I would rather you did.
Don't be crazy. You're still young. You have time enough to make a dozen more children. Give me that one. Don't make a fuss.
No, get your dirty hands off him.
Ouch, bite me, would you? So take that and drop that bundle.
Have pity, I pray you. Don't kill him. I'll give you all that I have.
What's this, huh? An animal? A lamb?
Oh, yes. Oh, it's not a baby. It's a lamb. I don't have any children. I can't have children. Oh, soldier, I pray you, don't kill my lamb, because it's not yet Easter. And you would commit a great sin if you kill him.
Look, woman, are you trying to play a joke on me? Or are you crazy, perhaps?
Me? Crazy? No, I am not crazy.
Come on, leave our lamb alone. The poor woman is out of her mind with grief because we've killed her son. What's the matter with you? Come on. There's still a lot more to be killed.
Wait, I think I'm going to be sick.
What do you expect? You eat like a pig, onions, salted mutton, stuff like that, and afterwards? Come over here. There's a tavern on the corner. I'll buy you a nice stiff drink.
No, it's not because of what I've eaten. It's because of this butchery, the slaughter of the children that we've been doing. That's what's turned my stomach.
If you knew you were such a delicate soul, you shouldn't have jumped up as a soldier in the first place.
I joined up in order to kill enemies, to kill men.
And presumably to send a few women tumbling in the hay as well, huh?
Yes, maybe, but only if they were enemy women.
And butcher their cattle.
Only enemy cattle.
And burn their houses. And kill their old people, their chickens, their children. Enemy children, of course.
Yes, babies too, but only in war. There is no shame and dishonor in war. The trumpets sound, the drums roll, and there are hymns of war, and the captain's fine speeches at the end.
You'll get captain's fine speeches at the end of this slaughter, too.
But here we're killing innocents.
What do you mean? Aren't people innocent in wars, too? What have those people ever done to you? Have they ever done anything to you, those poor souls whom you kill and maim to the sound of your trumpets? Well, blind my eyes if that's not the Virgin Mary with her child, the one we're looking for. Let's grab her before she can get away. Get a move on. This time we'll get that big reward that's been posted.
I don't want the dirty, stinking reward.
All right, then, I'll have it all for myself.
No, you're not taking it either.
But have you gone mad? Let me pass. We've got orders to kill the virgin child.
I shit on those orders. Don't move from there or I'll cut you down.
Wretch, don't you understand? If this child lives, he will become king of Galilee in place of Herod. That was what the prophecy said.
I shit on Herod in the prophecy.
All right, so you need to take a shit. Go and do in a field somewhere, since you've got no stomach for this. Let me pass, because I don't want to lose that reward.
No, I've had enough of seeing babies killed.
All right, then, so much the worse for you.
And the one soldier stabs the other because he won't go after the virgin and the child. This is faux. All right, thank you. Thank you. This is faux. And you see what we mean by the grotesque. Imagine a lady whose child has been killed holding a lamb. She's protecting herself from the murder of this lamb. She's protecting herself. Then the soldiers themselves recognize that they've got a duty to do. They'll kill anyone in sight. This all becomes a grotesque representation of the scene from the Bible. But it's no more grotesque than the scene itself might have been, except you see it in the stage. You see the language becoming a body and harsh, the language of the soldiers being illustrated by a foe in his dialogue. Now, Mr. Buffo is a series of biblical plays. And the next one we're going to look at is the morality of the blind man and the cripple. And this appears on pages 31 to 34 in your text. Now, of course, you have a blind man and a cripple who presumably are surviving on charity. Neither one wants to work. The blind man is without his dog, so he's helpless. The cripple is without his cart, so he is helpless. And they meet with Christ on Calvary. The problem is that Christ is going to cure them. And that becomes a problem for them. Because if they're cured, then they're going to have to see to work and walk to work, and they're not going to beg for charity. And this is something they're not sure they want. And so the English 33-45 players will come up and we'll have the morality of the blind man and the cripple and get some idea of the nature of Foe's humor and Foe's grotesqueness. All right.
Get out! Why? Because that thought doesn't fill me with joy. They say that if the Son of God even so much as a passerby here, I would immediately be miracled. You too. Just think of it. If both of us had the misfortune to be relieved of our infirmities, all of a sudden we would be forced to go out and look for work so as to be able to survive.
Well, I think that we should go and see the saint, so that he can lift us out of our wretched condition.
Are you serious? You'll end up getting miracled, and then you'll die of hunger because everybody will tell you, go to work.
Oh, puts me into a cold sweat just to think of it.
Go to work, vagabond, they will say. People who don't work should go to prison. And that way, you'll lose that great privilege which we share with the lords and masters of collecting tithes. They use the tricks of the law, and we make use of pity. Both of us take our tolls from fools.
Let's go. We must avoid meeting the saint. I'd rather die. Oh, mother! Let's go at the gallop. Grab hold of my ears and lead me as far away as you can from the city. Ow! We'll even leave Lombardy. We'll even go to France or to some other place this Jesus, Son of God, will never get to. I know. We'll go to Rome.
Oh, calm down. Both of us will be safe and sound. There's no danger yet because the profession accompanying the saint hasn't moved off yet.
What are they doing?
They have him tied to a column, and they're beating him. Oh, how they're beating him. They're so worked up.
Oh, poor boy. Why are they beating him? What has he done to them for them to get so worked up?
He's come to tell them about loving each other, about being equal like so many brothers. But make sure that you don't get taken into with compassion for him, because you'll run a great danger of getting miracles.
No, no! I'm not feeling compassion. That Christ doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know the man. But tell me, what are they doing now?
They're spitting at him. Dirty pigs, they're spitting in his face.
What's he doing? What is he saying, this poor holy Son of God?
He's not saying anything. He's not speaking. He's not fighting back. And he doesn't even look angry with those wicked people.
And how is he looking at them?
He's looking at them with looks of pity.
Oh, dear boy. Don't say another word, because I feel my stomach turning and a chill on my heart. I fear that it might be something related to compassion.
I too feel my breath catching in my throat and my arms shaking. Let's go. Let's get away from here.
Yes! Let's go and shut ourselves in some place where you don't have to see unhappy things like this. I know. A tavern.
Listen.
What?
That noise is getting nearer.
Do you suppose it's the Holy Son arriving?
Oh, dear God! Don't scare me. We'd be lost. There's nobody down by that column anymore.
Not even Jesus, the Son of God? Where have they all gone?
Here they are. Look at them all arriving in procession. We're ruined.
Is the Holy Man there too?
Yes, he's in the middle, and they've made him carry a heavy cross, the poor devil.
Don't wait around here getting all sorry for him. Hurry up! Instead, and get me to some place where we can hide from his eyes.
Yes, let's go. Let's get out of here. Run! Run before he can set his eyes on us, this miraculous saint.
Ah! I've twisted my ankle and I can't move anymore.
Oh, the devil take you. You have to choose this moment? Couldn't you look where you're putting your feet?
No, of course I couldn't look, because I'm blind and I can't see my feet. What am I saying? I can't see them. Yes, I can see them. I see them. I see my feet, my two lovely feet. By the saints with all their toes. How many toes? 5 per foot, with toenails, big ones and small ones next to each other. Oh, I want to kiss you all one by one.
You're mad. Behave yourself, or you'll tip me off. Oh, you've thrown me, wretch. If I could only give you a good kicking. Ow! Take that.
Oh, what a miracle! I can see the sky and the trees and the women. Oh, how beautiful the women are. Well, at least some of them.
Hey, was that really me that gave you a kick? Let me try it again. Yes, yes. Damn this day. I'm ruined.
Blessed be the Holy Son that has cured me. I see things that I've never seen in my life. I was a wretched animal trying and run away from him, because there's nothing in the world so sweet and joyful as he.
Oh, the devil take you, and him with you. I must have been really damned unfortunate to get looked at by that man full of love. I'm in despair. I'm going to end up dying with an empty belly. I'm going to end up eating these cured legs of mine out of sheer anger.
Now I see it well. I was mad to have wandered off the straight and narrow path to take this dark road. I did not realize what a good prize it was to be able to see, oh, how beautiful the colors are. The eyes of women, the lips, and the rest. Oh, how pretty the ants and flies are. And the sun. I can't wait for the night to come so that I can see the stars and go to the tavern to discover the color of wine. Thanks be to God, Son of God.
Oh, poor me. Now I'll have to go and work for an employer, sweating blood in order to eat. Oh, most wretched of wretches. I'm going to have to go and find me another saint who'll do me the favor of making me a cripple once again.
Miraculous Son of God, there are no other words either. There are no words either in Latin or in the common tongue which can describe your holiness. Like a river in full flow, even under the weight of a cross, you still have such an excessive love as to give thought to the misfortunes of poor wretches like us. Thank you.
The players have done a good job with Foe's words. We often watch movies, we watch television, we listen to the radio, and we admire the actors, and we admire the presentation, we admire the scenery and the special effects, but we always have to remember that nothing is said by an actor, nothing is directed by a director, unless the words have first been put down on paper, and that's the role of the writer. And Foe suggests in this very odd set of vignettes in Mistero Buffo a great faith in his religion and a great horror at the way mankind professes his religion by beating, by killing, by deceiving, by scamming, by tartufinage, by the hypocrisy we see. Now we're going to move into another interesting play, one that has drawn the imagination of Houston in recent months because the Main Street Theater presented The Virtuous Burglar. Quite a different type of play. In some ways, it suggests that there are people carrying on jobs in society who feel it's their right to own what other people own, to command what other people own, and to carry themselves on the shoulders of the goods and accessories of others. The Virtuous Burglar gives us the humor of Mr. Abuffo, but it doesn't give us the political attacks that we're going to find in plays that we're going to read later on, including The Accidental Death of an Anarchist and Trumpets and Raspberries. Trumpets and Raspberries. So first we're going to have Ms. Warford, who's going to discuss with you The Virtuous Burglar.
Display something, how would I do that?
Lay it right down here.
All right.
Little rectangle.
Okay. All right. We had fun with PowerPoint, so we'll see how well this works. I'm not quite sure. Wow, that works pretty well. All right. Well, as Mr. Rothman has already pointed out, this is one of the less politically inclined plays that Foe writes. It's written during an early period between 1957 and 1959, I believe. And so during this period, he deals more with social problems rather than problems with the government in Italy and or elsewhere in the world. Obviously, if you waded through the play, Foe mocks the institution of marriage, as I point out, is one of the social criticisms that he makes. All of the couples in the play, with the exception of the burglar and his wife, have extramarital affairs, in fact. Even the burglar and his wife have their own problems, as the burglar's wife appears as a sort of nag who won't even let her husband alone while he's trying to rob a house. And the burglar comes across as being apathetic almost towards his wife when she's calling. He just basically tells her anything and everything in order to get her off the phone so he can go about his business. This look at a couple is sort of the stereotypical version of marriage in terms of modern perspective, but regardless, it's still the most, or the least dysfunctional of the marriages that Foe portrays. The other spouses cheat, and furthermore, they lie, which is the next point that I make. He basically shows people to be compulsive liars in the play, in that when they're confronted with being caught having an affair, they say anything and everything to get out of being caught, more or less. They can't help themselves, and they do it without remorse. They lie about their affairs, and they even lie about who they are during the course of the play. They aren't honest characters in the least, and Foe ultimately shows that to be their downfall. Only in this sort of play, full of so many liars and and adulterers can the burglar actually appear to be the virtuous character. Returning to the sheet again, Foe satirizes society's superficial side. He does so first through the man of the play. When he is fixing, or he believes that his wife is going to catch him having an affair, he talks not about remorse in having the affair so much as the fact that he might be caught and it might hurt his public image. And so that sort of satirizes society's superficial side. He does so again with the character of the burglar, in that at the end of the play, the burglar is so enveloped with the various affairs and lies that the other characters are telling that he just wants to get out of there. He forgets all about the burglary that was supposed to take place, and he just moves on. He just flees almost from the sight. Similarly, this makes a point about superficial concerns. He would rather just leave all the lies than rob anything. And then finally, all of these things sort of culminate to show that generally society is relatively immoral. It's a social farce, more or less. All right. Move on to the next sheet. Okay, this is just a sheet more or less telling the various characters appearing in the play. There are only 6 that appear in the text. And these are the only vehicles, really, by which Foe conveys his social criticisms. You should note the very vague names of the characters. I think that he uses these sort of general names, like the burglar, the burglar's wife, in order to present the generality of the whole situation. Although this is an exaggerated play, he means for it to represent everyday corruption. As I've already said, it's a social farce, and so the names play into this. He's trying to poke fun at society and their lack of morals, so he keeps the name the names general. Burglar is general enough, and of course there's names like Antonio, which I assume is basically the Italian equivalent of Bob, and so these are very common names. In terms of plot, Foe doesn't so much build drama with a lot of action. Not much happens in the play. He only adds to the intrigue by focusing on the various perspectives of characters. He focuses on deceit and paranoia, so the drama in large part comes from what these characters think and what's going on in their minds rather than what is actually happening. So in order to demonstrate what happens in terms of plot, I'll take you through these various perspectives. First of all, though, I think it's important just to give a general outline as to who these characters are in relation to one another. The solid line connecting the man and Anna and the woman and Antonio is supposed to represent actual marriages. These are the characters, or the 2 couples that are married. And then the dotted lines between the man and the woman and Anna and Antonio show the affairs that these characters are having. Now, the whole situation gets confusing when with the dotted line between the burglar and the woman, because in terms of explanations to spouses and whatnot, as far as characters like the burglar's wife and Anna are concerned, the woman and the burglar are in fact married and or having an affair, and this isn't the case at all. So that's where the plot of the play gets to be confusing. Right. All right. Now that we've established the various relationships in the play, we'll actually move to the perspectives. And as I've said before, the perspectives of characters are very important to Foe because not so much happens in the play. Characters show up and basically foil the plot, but it's mostly the deception and what characters think is going on that drives the play. The man's perspective is one of the most reliable presented in the play. The man is one of the most clued-in characters appearing, And though he mistakes the identity of the burglar, as indicated as the first item on the sheet, he has a pretty good idea of what's going on. He's the character that tells the lies. He's not so much affected by the lies that other people tell. Like I said, he just tells the lies basically, and he doesn't believe them, so that's why he's a reliable character. Although he is, for the most part, clued in, he doesn't know until the end of the play that his wife is having an affair also. At the beginning of the play, you note that the man is extremely paranoid about the woman, or his wife more so, finding out that he's having an affair with the woman, and he might not would have displayed such paranoia if he had known that his wife was having an affair with Antonio. So this is the man's perspective, one of the 6. All right, so we'll move to the second. Now again, the woman, the general woman name, is the mistress of the man and the wife of Antonio, just to remind you. The woman's perspective is very much like the man's. In fact, the reason why these characters are the most informed is, first off, because they're the first ones appearing in the play, and Foe uses them to set the action in motion. He uses them in order to set up general understanding for the reader, and so that's why they pretty much tell everything that they know at the beginning, and it's for the most part accurate, because it is a relatively confusing play when you first try to wade through it, and so that helps to make it clear. The woman, much like the man, doesn't know that her husband is having an affair either, and this is the last affair that you find out about during the course of the play, and that's the one between Anna and Antonio. And that is just basically the straw that breaks the camel's back. At that point, the play deteriorates to the point where they just try to walk away from this awkward situation. Now, the third perspective that we'll look at is Anna's perspective. And she, of course, is Antonio's mistress and also the man's wife. And when she comes into the play, this is about midway through, and the man and the woman have been expecting her arrival, assuming that the burglar is actually a detective that has clued her into the fact that they're having an affair. But she is more or less clueless to that situation and just walks into the lie that the man sets into motion. Anne's importance as a character stems more from her effect as a plot, stems more from her extension of plot more so than her as an actual character. She works as a trigger that begins the lies of the man and of his mistress. And of course, she further complicates the plot when her lover, Antonio, comes to see her, because then, of course, the woman is dragged into all of the lies, and they have to explain why Antonio knows the woman and whatnot, especially considering that she's supposed to be the burglar's wife. When you add to all of this that she's the one who actually introduces the burglar's real wife to the burglar's pretend wife, which is the general woman again, we see that she complicates the plot further. And so she is essentially a plot foiler, whereas I said the man sets the lies into action. Anna's just one who furthers these lies. She really complicates the plot, but even more so, she doesn't know that she's doing it half the time, because she's just acting under the influence of the lies that her husband told. All right. The next perspective that we'll look at is Antonio's. He appears very late in the play, in fact, not until the very end. And although he walks in at the end and he doesn't know exactly what's been going on, he walks into it and he figures out what's going on pretty fast. In fact, it's not he's not there all that long before he and the man just try to put an end to the whole situation. They laugh, more or less, and try to play it off as, well, this is so simple a child could understand it, when in fact it's not simple at all, because all it's been is a web of lies that doesn't make much sense at all. The burglar keeps saying things like, what a number of misunderstandings we've had tonight, and and they can't explain it any more so to the burglar than they can to their spouses. Their motivation is only to cover up their extramarital affairs. They don't care about making the whole thing make sense. Thus, the burglar has 2 wives, and none of them seem to have much of a problem with it, because they all have something that they're trying to cover up. They would just assume, leave it as bigamy, which isn't all that common, and it seems a little bit odd, rather than actually exploring the truth and having more truth come out that might affect their individual stories and individual lives and reveal their affairs. Now, the burglar and the burglar's wife are the last 2 perspectives shown in the play, and these are interesting in that they are the only ones who aren't so much affected by the actual affair. They're just really viewing it and observing it and just hearing the lies, more or less. The burglar's wife, of course, becomes minimally involved when she calls up to the house, assuming that her husband will answer, and in fact, the man who owns the house answers. And during the course of that conversation, she assumes that her husband isn't there or wasn't at the house at all. Or wasn't there very long. He is, in fact, just having an affair with the owner of the house, the man's wife, Anna. And that isn't the case at all, of course. But regardless, that's what the burglar's wife thinks, and that's what drives her to eventually call Anna and stir things up, and then to arrive at the house later on, which complicates things again, because then they have to introduce both of these women, both the general woman, who is the mistress of the man, and Anna, as both wives of the burglar. So you can see how the burglar's wife, although she's not directly involved in the affairs that drive the play, is definitely affected by it and furthers the plot in that way. Now, the final perspective is that of the burglar, and this is an appropriate perspective to conclude with, because he's the only character to observe all the affairs and realize what's going on. Although he goes to the house in order to rob the place, he has a great deal of enjoyment at the expense of the other characters, because whenever the situation gets sticky, he just sort of laughs at the various characters and says, wow, another misunderstanding. And that essentially becomes his role at the conclusion of the play. He just continually reiterates this idea that there are a lot of misunderstandings, which frustrates the characters because they're trying to get away with all of the lies that they've already told to cover up the affairs. The burglar, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, becomes an interesting character because, of course, the title of the play is named after him, The Virtuous Burglar. And as I said before again, the burglar becomes a sort of ironic character because, as compared to the adulterous lying characters or the other lying adulterous characters, he's actually comparatively virtuous, and he almost becomes a victim in the play. In fact, at one point, the man holds a gun to the burglar and says, "Rob my house," because he's afraid of what the burglar might go and tell the other people, the burgling community, I imagine. I don't know exactly who he's concerned about, but regardless, he pulls a gun on the burglar and he threatens him if he doesn't actually rob the house. And so you can see how comparatively he would appear virtuous in that situation. And the man, of course, shows a superficial side of society, like I mentioned at the beginning of the play, is one of Foe's social criticisms, in that he would just as soon have his house robbed rather than the other burglars in the community think that he's cheap and won't let someone rob him, which is rather odd concern, again. So essentially, by looking at these various perspectives, we see that a great deal of paranoia and a great deal of deceit is what drives the play. It's a concern for the well-being of these marriages, perhaps. Maybe just it's that they don't want to get caught doing something wrong. But regardless, the characters become extremely concerned about getting caught having the affairs, and they just create this huge lie to try to cover it up, step away from it at the end, just saying it's so simple a child that could understand. Foe makes a joke of it one last time as the burglar and his wife escape, because another burglar comes up intending to rob the house and notes that things have already been bundled, and so he thinks he's going to walk away with the loot. And this second burglar becomes enveloped in this whole complicated plot, and they try to explain it all over again, which, although the play concludes, you assume would be quite a fiasco, if nothing else. And so that is essentially the dramatic structure of The Virtuous Burglar. It's a complicated play, but it's more entertaining because of its complexity, because everyone's involved with everyone, and everyone's lying about who they are and what they're doing what with or whatnot. It's definitely both a comedy and a social farce. Excuse me.
We're going to discover that Dario Fo not only is unique in some of his productions and the way he presents plays, but he also alters to some extent the normal dramaturgic technique that we expect. Now, in this play, he's relatively conventional if we recognize the fact that he's giving us the trysting scenes that one finds in medieval, one finds in Restoration drama, Renaissance drama. If you're looking for quick wit, swift dialogue, surprising turns of events, if you're looking for characters who have to answer their frustration with ready responses, mendacious actions, and even servile commentary, you get an idea of the language and the virtuosity of Dario Fo's The Virtuous Burglar. It's a humorous play. It's a play in a long tradition of trysting scenes. And now we'd like to have the English 3345 players give us a few scenes from The Virtuous Burglar. When we move on to the tragedies or to the plays that emulate tragedies, we're going to find out that Dario Fo follows a technique totally averse to what we're accustomed to seeing in normal three-act sequences. While this play is just a one-act play and formidable in its compactness, in its address of complications, in the twists and tergiversations of conversation, the other plays are two actors. Now, you've never seen, or at least we haven't seen ordinarily, two-act plays. And so the question is, what does he do in two acts that Shakespeare required 3 major acts or 5 major and minor acts to complete? What is his technique? And how does he bring to the stage social commentary that, in fact, follows matrices that we really haven't studied before? Now, we're going to look at The Virtuous Burglar. We're going to look at 3 separate sequences. And first in your text there is the beginning, pages 315 to 18, when the burglar creeps into the house. The narration says of burglar has forced open a window, is climbing into a third-floor apartment in a well-to-do block of flats. On one side stands a classical shaded lamp. He looks around carefully. Obviously, he's a connoisseur. Incidentally, there was an article in the New York Times several years ago about a first-rate burglar who lived in an expensive $200,000 apartment in New York City. That was about enough years ago that $200,000 seemed to be a high price. He claimed that when he entered an apartment, he only used a tool that opened the door and he could flush it down the toilet so no one could catch him with burglar's tools. And then he only stole $10,000 or more, because he says that's what it would cost him to hire a lawyer if he were caught. $10,000 for a lawyer. He said he had studied jewelry, coins, fine silver, art, crystal. In fact, he said he probably should have earned a PhD in each area, because he knew quality, and he only stole quality. He said, however, that he was never regretful about stealing, because at that time the newspapers used to report what people claimed had been stolen from them. And he said when he read what people said was stolen and what they were charging the insurance company, he said they were stealing more than he had stolen from the insurance company. He came from Italy. Foe, of course, is from Italy. We're having an Italian burglar here. Foe is from Italy, and he said his father, who taught him all tricks, who taught him how to pick every lock manufactured in Italy, an experience he had transferred to America when he knew every lock published in America, produced in America, and knew how to pick them and how to open them. He says he really had felt he had gained a great legacy from his father. So this is a burglar in the United States. Now we're going to look at the scene as the burglar comes in Foe's play. And we have the burglar and the burglar's wife first in the sequence, 315 to 318. All right?
Hello? Hello? Would you kindly answer? Who's speaking?
Oh, at last.
Oh, at last. Who's speaking?
Maria? Is that you?
Yes, it's me. Why didn't you reply?
You're crazy. Are you even phoning me at work now? Suppose there had been someone in the house. Oh, you're a great help, you are.
But you told me yourself that the owners were at their country cottage. Anyway, I'm sorry, but I just couldn't stand it anymore. I was worried about you. I didn't feel well. Even a few moments ago, when I was ringing up, I could hardly breathe.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, too. I didn't mean it. It never occurred to me that it might be you.
And just what do you mean by that?
Nothing. But let me get on. I've already wasted enough time.
Oh, I'm wasting your time now. Thank you very much. Here I am in agony, nearly sick with worry. I don't know what to do with myself.
What are you doing?
I'm going through absolute hell, all because of you. And you treat me like this. Charming. Just charming, that is. But don't worry. From now on, I'm not interested. From now on, don't even bother telling me where you're going. Because as far as I am concerned...
My dear, try and be reasonable. Can't you get into your sweet head that I'm not here for fun? Just this once, couldn't you let me get on with my burgling in peace?
There you go. You're at it again, playing the martyr. There are plenty of people who burgle, shoplift, even go in for armed robbery without all this fuss. Just as well you stick to petty crime. Otherwise, God knows what sort of state I'd be in.
Quiet.
What's that?
Oh, It's only the grandfather clock, thank goodness.
What a clear sound it has. Must be quite old. Is it very heavy?
Well, it might be quite... come on. You're not really expecting me to bring it home.
Oh, no, don't you bother your little head about me. How could you imagine that I'd ask anything like that? Nice thought from you. You giving a little present to me? The very idea.
You're mad, that's what you are. If I try to carry off that box, you tell me where to put the silverware and anything else I find.
In the box.
You wouldn't like me to bring home a fridge. There's a nice big one through there, with the freezer compartment.
Don't raise your voice, please. You're not at home now.
Sorry, I got carried away.
Besides, you might be overheard, and you'd look singularly ill-mannered.
I've already said I'm sorry.
And anyway, I didn't say I wanted a fridge. Never mind one with a freezer compartment. I wouldn't know where to put it. But I would like a little something. It's the thought that counts. I'll leave it to you. It's you that's given the present after all.
How am I supposed to know what you'd like? I've got other things on my mind right now.
If that's all it is, I could come along and choose it myself.
Oh, that's all I need.
I'd love to see what a real luxury flat is like. I'd make them die with envy at the morning coffee.
It's me that died from something or other, not the women at the coffee morning. I'm here to burgle this house. Can you not understand that? Cheerio. See you later.
What's the rush? Is it too much for you to be nice to me once in a while? I am your wife, after all. You even married me in church, not in a registry. Like some whore, you can't get out of it.
I already said goodbye.
Just a little kiss?
Oh, all right.
Do you love me?
Yes, I love you.
Very much?
Very, very much. But now will you put down the phone?
You first.
All right, me first.
Don't forget the present.
All right, the burglar replaces the phone, staring at it all the while with hatred. His wife has called him at work, and some people don't like their wives to call them at work. At that moment, the woman disappears. The wife hangs up the phone. The burglar's alone. He opens a drawer. He begins to put things in a bag that he's found in the drawer, when he hears voices coming to the apartment, and someone has returned, apparently the owner of the house, with a young lady whom he is shepherding into his apartment, and the burglar has to find a place to escape. He dives inside the grandfather clock that had been dinging so prominently a few moments ago. All right, come back up.
There's a light in the living room. My God, I'm so frightened. Let's get out of here.
Oh, calm down. Must have left it on myself. Who else do you imagine it might have been?
Suppose your wife has come back.
What do you mean, my wife? Who could ever have brought her back to town? She wouldn't come even if she knew they were stripping the place. Well, are you satisfied? There's no one here.
I feel so guilty. I wonder what you really think of me. Maybe I was wrong to give in to you so soon. I'm sure your wife resisted for much longer than me.
What's my wife got to do with it? She was always full of complexes. She had so many petty bourgeoisie prejudices, she wouldn't do it. Just so she could get married in white.
Yes, pretty bourgeoisie, full of prejudice, but you married her just the same. I'd like to see if you would do the same for me.
My dear, I assure you that if my wife didn't have so many old-fashioned ideas, and if your husband were not so hostile, come closer to me.
There, you have ruined everything. Why did you have to remind me that I have a husband? What am I supposed to do now? You've brought back all my remorse, my guilt complex, my...
I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to. Maybe if we could talk about something else, just have a little chat. Perhaps you'd manage to forget once again, and we could go in there.
And where?
Well, my bedroom.
Perhaps that is the best idea. Let's try.
Hey, you want to go to the bedroom?
No, try and chat a little.
Couldn't we go in there and chat?
Please, don't rush me. Let's just have a conversation. Let's talk about when you were a child. I'm very fond of children.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll begin from when I was 5. Because I don't remember anything before that.
5? Pity. I prefer little children. They are more innocent. There's no harm in them. But if it's the best you can do...
Here we go. Remember that at 5 years old, I was still a child, but I used to be taken for a 6-year-old. Oh, no! For goodness sake, enough of this! I feel like a right idiot. Good gosh, you've been making a fool out of me for a whole hour. First it was my wife, then your husband. Poor bastard, if he had to put up all this stopping and starting.
Not at all. I was quite different with him. He yielded right away.
What do you mean, yielded right away?
Just what I say. In his case, it was me who invited him up to my place, so it was up to me to make him succumb. If we separate the pleasure of conquest from love, what's left? Regrettably, my husband has always been lamentably spineless, and he gave in at once. So I despised him. But with you, I have the feeling it will be different. You were so resolute once you make up your mind. Go on, be resolute.
Yes, I am being resolute. I resolve we go through there right now.
Ring, 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 ring.
Who could that be?
Your wife?
Ring, ring, ring.
No, my wife. Why should she be phoning? Who should she be ringing? Certainly not me. She believes that I'm at my mother's. Anyway, it doesn't sound like a long-distance call. Must be one of those heavy breathers or someone who's got the wrong number. Let's go through. It'll stop in a minute.
Ring, ring.
Please,
ring,
make it
ring.
stop. It's driving me mad.
All right.
Ring,
All right.
ring.
Ugh. There you are. Won't bother us now. Knocked it off the hook.
Oh my God, what have you done? Now they're bound to know that we're at home. Who else could have removed the receiver?
Oh, what a fool. Gosh, you're right. They might even suspect that I'm not on my own. They'll think I'm trying to hide something terrible.
Thank you very much. Why don't you come right out and tell me that you only want me for one thing? Just as I was letting myself be convinced. Serves me right.
My dear, don't understand me. Don't let's lose control. For goodness sake, let's stay calm. After all, why should they imagine for one moment that it was me who picked up the receiver? Could have been anyone. It could have been,
Certainly someone just passing by.
Well, why not?
Someone passing through by the merest chance. A burglar, for example.
Yeah, it could be. What do you mean a burglar? If they thought that, they'd call the police.
Right, and who knows, maybe they've done that already. Oh my God, they'll find us here together. They'll arrest us. The police, I want to go home.
No, don't go away. Calm down.
All right. We're now going to move on to one other sequence, pages 323 to 327, where the burglar, the woman and the man, and the burglar's wife have a confrontation. The burglar calls, and the man answers. And, of course, you've got that point of confusion. So we have the burglar's wife up here, and the burglar, the woman and the man. Who's the burglar's wife? It's West, the burglar's wife. At this point, the burglar's wife has called and talked to her husband. Now she's calling and talking to the owner of the house, wondering where her husband is. Obviously, he's still in the grandfather clock, and this becomes part of the mechanism. It's a very popular technique, the hiding scene, the screen scene, the disappearance scene in Restoration and 18th century drama. All right, 323, the burglar says they're coming back. He's hit his head in the clock, and the woman answers.
Oh, they're coming back. Now support, move over, pendulum.
What's that?
Nothing, my dear. Just a grandfather clock. It struck one.
I'm sorry, I'm a bundle of nerves. You're not so calm and collected yourself. Look, you were going to leave the phone off the hook.
Ring, ring.
Ring.
Hello?
About time, too. I've been trying to get through for a full hour. Are you going to tell me why you cut me off?
I'm sorry. Who's speaking, please?
Oh, that's lovely. Now you don't even recognize your own wife's voice.
Your wife, I knew it. Oh, my God.
Who's that with you? How could you... I distinctly heard a woman's voice. Who is it?
Calm down now, my dear. There must be some mistake. I've no idea who's on this phone. I've never heard this voice before.
But I have. There's no point in you trying to wiggle out. You brute, you swine. I found you out at last. Now I understand why you didn't want me to come to that house. But you'll need to come here sometime, and I'll be waiting.
Look, there's been some kind of mistake. You've got the wrong number. This is a Frazzosi's house.
I know that fine, Frazzozzi. 47 via Sanini, flat number 3. Now stop playing the fool and don't try disguising your voice anymore. You don't do it very well, you swine, after telling me you didn't want to be disturbed at your work.
Who said he was working?
Some work, right enough. Mucking about with another woman. Traitor, phony, cheat, liar. They always said that a liar is a thief. I mean, a thief is a liar.
What do you mean, thief, phony? Who do you think you're talking to?
To my husband. Who else?
If your husband is a phony thief, that's your business. But I'm not your husband, but the husband of my wife, who's not here. Thank God otherwise.
We'd all be done for.
First...
We'd all be done for.
First of all, my husband is not a phony thief. He's a real thief.
Congratulations, madam.
And if you are not my husband, what are you doing in that house?
My dear lady, this is my own house.
Oh, excellent. You're in your own house with a woman who is not your wife. Alone, at this time of night, after spreading the word that you were out of town.
We've been found out.
So, just like my husband, you too are a traitor, a cheat, a liar, and therefore a thief.
I don't give a damn for your husband, but I'd be very grateful if you would tell me who said I'd be out of town.
My husband! He always tells me where he's going. He's been keeping you under observation for 10 days.
What?
Yes, he was waiting for the right moment.
Was waiting for what? What on earth did your husband want to know?
But don't you see? Your wife had you followed by that woman's husband, who must be a private detective.
Now I understand. So your husband offers this splendid service.
Well, he's only doing his job.
Marvelous job, too, if you think it's respectable to do everything you can to make a wife leave her husband.
My husband make a wife leave her own husband? Watch what you're saying.
Stop acting the goat, and don't let on that you know nothing about it. My wife playing a dirty trick like that on me. No doubt that in this world, mutual trust is dead and buried, and fool that I was, I have deceived myself. There are certain things my wife never stooped to, I said to myself. She's a real lady, kind they don't make anymore, even if she is a bit on the simple side. It was me that was simple.
What are you getting at? Are you implying that your wife and my husband...
What do you mean implying? I couldn't be more certain. For God's sake, quit the clowning.
All right. Where's my husband now?
How should I know, if you don't know yourself?
I only know that less than 1 hour ago he was there in your house.
Here? In this house?
Certainly. I phoned him myself. In fact, I thought he was still there.
He must have got the keys from your wife.
We're going to stop now. That's fine. That gives us a sense of the complication and the shift of plots. Of course, one of the traditional concepts is that the burglar recognizes that he's more honest than the people who are presumably honest. The burglar's wife discovers that her husband, who is virtuous, but who is a good burglar, is now no longer virtuous, still a good burglar, and so events begin turning one on the other. The question, of course, is where does Foe gain all these characters? He has mentioned in an interview that he used to listen to townspeople, people in the fishing village where he lived, tell stories. He says, I lived in a town of smugglers and fishermen to whom it wasn't enough just of guts. You had to have a lot of imagination. Of course, all crooks have imagination, and they do things others wouldn't even think of doing. Says Foe, people who use their imagination to break the law always keep part of it in reserve to entertain themselves and their friends. In that sort of environment, everybody's a character in, as well as the author and protagonist of any story he tells. And Foe goes on, having listened to these fishermen and smugglers tell their story. He says, I built up a collection of these stories from the time I was 7, when I started hanging out with these smugglers and fishermen. I just didn't learn the content of their stories, but I learned their way of telling them. Now, there are two other writers who tell us that they learned stories from other people. Robert Burns tells us that he learned of Kelpies and warlocks and Scottish myths from an old maid at whose knees he used to sit. And John Weidman, Burns was an 18th century figure. John Weidman, who is a modern urban writer of the Black Ghetto, says he used to listen to stories of the family sitting at the knees of his aunt. Remarkable stories. We'll be back in a few minutes.